is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Death toll from al-Shabaab suicide car bombing at a Mogadishu hotel rises to 29, 80 are wounded. Celebrations continue in Senegal following Macky Sall's re-election. The runner-up, Idrissa Seck, rejects the result. And the UN and Zimbabwean authorities appeal for $234 million for Zimbabweans in urgent need of assistance. You're watching Africa Live. A warm welcome from Nairobi. I am Peninah Karibe. Let's have a look at other stories coming up this hour. In business, Tanzania's central bank begins a crackdown on illegal forex traders. And in sport, France kicks off the 100-day countdown to the Women's World Cup. Somali troops are still trying to dislodge al-Shabaab militants holed up in a building after a blast on a hotel late Thursday. At least 29 people have been killed and 80 others injured. Police fear the death toll could rise as the battle continues. Militants attacked the Makkah al-Mukarramah hotel, then seized a nearby building. Cars in the street were set ablaze and buildings destroyed. Al-Shabaab has claimed responsibility. The group is fighting to dislodge a Western-backed government protected by African Union-mandated peacekeepers.
I was driving my auto rickshaw on this road when I saw many people fleeing, and a big blast occurred soon after that. I swear to Allah that I can't express in words how anxious and shocked I was.
I am one of the city rickshaw drivers. While I was driving in this street, I saw a speeding luxury car turning to Hilak UK Hotel, and afterwards, an explosion rocked the whole area.
Celebrations continue in Senegal following re-election of Senegalese President Macky Sall. He secured a second term without the need for a runoff. Electoral Commission President Demba Kandji announced that the incumbent leader received 58.3% of the total votes. The 57-year-old had sought re-election on his record of infrastructure development and job creation. He has referred to himself the builder of modern Senegal. Provisional results show top opposition candidate Idrissa Seck securing 20.5% of the votes, while Ousmane Sonko had 15.7%.
The number of registered voters was 6,683,043. Total number of votes, 4,426,344. The number of valid votes were 4,383,879 and are divided as follows. Macky Sall, 2,554,605 or 58.27%. Idrissa Seck, 898,674 or 20.5%. Ousmane Sonko, 687,065 or 15.67%. Madické Niang, 65,002 or 1.48%. Issa Sall, 178,533 or 4.07%.
The runner-up in Senegal's presidential election, Idrissa Seck, has rejected that final provisional presidential election result. He, however, says that he will not appeal against the result. Seck previously said that his camp's results showed Sall not winning enough votes for re-election in the first round. Supporters of Seck have since gathered in front of Seck's coalition headquarters in the capital Dakar, shouting second round. Most of the capital Dakar, however, appeared quiet after the results, despite a few pockets of unrest. Senegal has long been viewed as West Africa's most stable democracy, with peaceful transitions of power since it gained independence in 1960.
We acknowledge that the National Vote Counting Commission has published the election results, which perfectly reflect the order of the outgoing candidate. We firmly and with no reservations reject those results. We will not make any appeal before the Constitutional Council.
Moving on to Nigeria, the country's National Electoral Commission has met behind closed doors to review Saturday's rescheduled polls. Among those meeting were INEC officials and resident electoral commissioners from the country's 36 states. The meeting was also in efforts to prepare for governorship and state assembly elections due to be held on March 9th. This meeting comes after the electoral body declared President Muhammadu Buhari the winner of the 2019 elections. President Buhari defeated his main contender Atiku Abubakar after securing 56% of the vote. Abubakar has, however, rejected the results and has said a legal challenge is likely to ensue. INEC says reviewing the polls is a necessary step to strengthen electoral processes.
I thought that since the resident electoral commissioners were here with the state collation officers for the presidential election, it is important for us to meet and review the experiences of the last election with a view to strengthening our processes towards the successful conduct of the state elections on Saturday, March the 9th. We have gone very far with all the arrangements for the elections. Elections will hold on March the 9th for the election of governors of states as well as members of the state assemblies.
Kelechi Emekalam is following developments for us from Abuja and joins us live from there. Kelechi, what's the latest following the election results, and has Mr. Atiku indicated when he is likely to proceed to court?
Well, yes, Atiku did make some strong reactions there following the election results. He claimed that there were statistical improbabilities which were apparent, highlighting high voter turnout in the conflict areas and very low turnout in peaceful states. He also alleged that military personnel suppressed the votes in certain areas. It's one of the reasons why the Electoral Commission had been meeting with its state electoral officers, basically to review and give their assessments on the just concluded presidential and National Assembly elections held last weekend. Now, there were reports that it was marred by delays, sporadic violence, multiple card reader failures, and there were also allegations of votes rigging. So these are the reasons why Atiku has said that he would contest the outcome of the elections in court. However, we would know in the coming days, in the days ahead, when he files the case and as it progresses.
Kelechi, what are the likely scenarios ahead of the swearing in of the president, and when should we expect it?
Well, May 29 is a day when the president would be sworn in, and between now and that time, it's expected that all court cases being contested, all issues being contested during the elections would have been dispensed and concluded with.
And what would you say tops the list of priorities for President Buhari in his second term?
Okay, President Buhari's campaign tagged Next Level had 5 key points. Job creation was one of them. Government's own official information shows Buhari has presided over a worsening national job situation with rising unemployment rates. Second is infrastructure, expectedly roads, rail power and the internet, which he marked to be treated as critical infrastructure. There's also business and entrepreneurship, human capital enhancement, which includes education and healthcare, and finally there's also political inclusion. It's promising to ensure that 35% of his appointments go to female. It's hard to say which one would be prioritized at the moment, but these are the issues that will top his agenda this time round. All right,
Kelechi Emekalam live in Abuja, many thanks. You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a quick break coming up. The UN and Zimbabwean authorities appeal for $234 million for Zimbabweans in urgent need of assistance. And an estimated 90,000 hectares of moorland destroyed by a raging fire in Mount Kenya National Park.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Data of the country. The country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Peninah Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
Haven't changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives. News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
UN and Zimbabwean authorities have launched an international appeal for $234 million in aid. The continuing drought and worsening economic situation is expected to affect almost half of the country's population as crop yields drop. Over the next 6 months, the funds will support 2.2 million people in urgent need of food, water and medicine. In January, protests erupted nationwide when President Mnangagwa attempted to double fuel prices. UN Humanitarian Affairs Chief Mark Lowcock urged the government to actively address people's legitimate concerns, including through open national dialogue.
Of the nearly 5.3 million people who are estimated to be in urgent need of humanitarian assistance and protection, the flash appeal is targeting 2.2 million people in both rural and urban communities.
I am releasing $10 million today as a first contribution to the appeal.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, Health Minister Olilunga Kalenga has condemned an attack on an Ebola center in the eastern region of Butembo. The minister says efforts are currently focused on the immediate safety of staff and patients. He visited the center alongside World Health Organization officials following Wednesday's attack. Armed assailants set some of the compound's facilities on fire. None of the patients who have been accounted for were injured, nor were any staff members. But 4 of the patients with confirmed cases fled and are being looked for. The attack was the second in Congo's Ebola hit east this week. Aid workers have faced mistrust in some areas as they work to contain the outbreak.
I have only one thing to say. We must not forget that Ebola is a fatal illness, an extremely contagious illness. To this day, 500 people died. There are entire families in North Kivu who have been decimated. In the West African epidemic, entire villages have disappeared. So the message is that the teams fighting Ebola are here to ensure the population doesn't suffer a great loss.
In Addis Ababa, the Africa Centers for Disease Control is growing in its influence as far as fighting and controlling outbreaks across the continent. The institution continues expansion with support from international partners. Chinese health experts and technical advisors are part of the ongoing global collaboration. CGTN's Graham Chala reports.
Formed only in 2017, the Africa Centers for Disease Control is a relatively new organization which is mandated to respond to any continent-wide health emergencies. The Africa CDC has so far responded to more than 16 ZOS emergencies in Africa, including to the latest DR Congo Ebola outbreak.
If You see Africa City, what it was 2 years ago, and now it is a completely different story because now we are having the staff in place. You know, we are establishing the regional collaborating centers. I can tell you that we have 3 out of 5 regional collaborating centers that are fully operationalized now.
From Gabon, Zambia, Kenya, as well as to the upcoming regional collaborative centers in Egypt and Nigeria, the Africa CDC is in a position to fully serve the continent in executing works of disease control. Dr. Benjamin says in making the Africa CDC a reality, the contribution of China has been immense.
China especially, you know, they not only provided, you know, financial support to Africa CDC, but we have, you know, high level, you know, personnel, you know, qualified personnel with us, you know, as technical advisors to the Africa CDC currently. They are working with us, and they want ahead to commit themselves to support, you know, the construction of the future headquarters of Africa CDC.
This is Dr. Wang Xiaochun. He's one of the finest epidemiologists who is sent by China's CDC to serve the African counterpart. Dr. Wang has been here at the Africa CDC for the last 3 months and has been providing high-level technical advice in works of disease control across the continent.
Before the establishing of Africa CDC, the China government and the China CDC fully support Africa CDC establishment and development, but very broad the areas to support Africa CDC, including deploy some Chinese experts to work in Africa CDC. For me, that's from the last year. Currently, I'm working here already 3 months. Even I'm as an expert, but actually I can say I work here not just to support Africa CDC, but also learn a lot from Africa CDC.
China was one of the front-runner countries when it comes to responding to the 2015 Ebola outbreak in West Africa. Its health workers, alongside their African counterparts, have saved many lives in the continent. Dr. Wang says China's works of supporting African states continues.
I think that China futurely will support Africa CDC, support all of Africa countries to establish the National Public Health Institute and set up disease surveillance and the laboratory network, and also fully support our country, the public health personnel workforce.
The Africa Centers for Disease Control has still a long way to go, and it wants to be fully in control of disease surveillance and response across Africa. Its management says it needs China's support to hit its target sooner.
The most important thing is, you know, for us from China is to support us, you know, to establish, you know, the first-hand institution has, you know, in the spirit of the concept document of the Africa CDC. So we want in the next 5 to 10 years to have a fully functional and established Africa CDC that can respond, you know, in the timely manner to detect and to prevent diseases on the continent. So this is our aspiration.
The Africa CDC is missioned by AU member states to strengthen Africa's public health institutions' capacities, capabilities, and partnerships to detect and respond quickly and effectively to disease threats and outbreaks based on science, policy, and data-driven interventions and programs. To achieve this mission, many say the Africa Center for Disease Control can use any support it can get. Grumtara CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Pakistan is set to release a captured Indian pilot in a peace gesture aimed at easing tensions with its nuclear arch rival. This follows aerial clashes that ignited fears of a dangerous conflict in South Asia. Pakistani Foreign Minister says the wing commander will be handed back to Indian officials at the Wagah border crossing on Friday afternoon. Indian opposition politicians have raised doubts over whether an initial airstrike had destroyed a militant camp in Pakistan. Let's now get the latest from Pakistan, and Daniel Khan joins us live from there. So, Daniel, what's the latest from Pakistan and when should we expect the handover?
Well, the handover time was 3 p.m. Local time, which is right about now, but it has been delayed for an hour, according to official sources, as he's being transported by road, and the Pakistani airspace, as we know, is closed for now due to security reasons. Now, from Islamabad to Lahore, it's about 370 kilometers, and it takes about 3.5 to 4 hours. So this has been delayed for another 1.5 hours. Now, a large number of security personnel have been deployed at the Wagah border in Lahore, and crowds have started gathering. In a formal ceremony, he will be handed over to the Indian authorities in about 1 or 2 hours. Yes.
And how much damage was done following the airstrike in Pakistan, and how is this being resolved?
There was damage only to some pine trees and to a home of a farmer who also got some injuries in the forehead. But the Indian claims that over 300 people were killed are completely false, and that they targeted some kind of a seminary or a madrasa. The army, Pakistan Army, took international as well as local media to the site, and it was quite evident that there was no damage whatsoever. So India, experts here in Pakistan believe that India has been trying to escalate. There are still tensions at various borders between Pakistan and India. Violations are taking place. We are getting mixed reports of violations, firing from the Indian side. So situation is still tense, but as far as the claims of India bombing inside Pakistan, they are completely false.
All right, Daniel Khan live there in Pakistan. Many thanks, Daniel. Here in Kenya, at least 90,000 hectares of moorland in the Mount Kenya National Park has been destroyed by a raging fire that started on Saturday. The wildfire reportedly started near Lake Ellis before spreading to neighboring counties. The Kenya Forest Service Chief Conservator Monica Kalenda says 114 forest fires have been reported in the country since January. She says they are looking forward to putting out the fire. The process is, however, proving difficult due to strong winds. The Kenya Forest Service says it is investigating the cause of the fire. Thousands of students in Cote d'Ivoire have been holding protests. The students are calling for an end to an ongoing teachers' strike. Public sector strikes have threatened to paralyze the country. They began last year. Numerous state-run schools have now been closed for over a month. Lecturers and teachers are protesting over poor working conditions and salaries. Negotiations with the government came to a halt soon after they began last week. Many students are asking for classes to resume, worried about missing lessons.
As students, as leaders of tomorrow who are responsible for the future of the country, we are not comfortable with this situation. We're not happy that we are still at home. We want to go back to class. We want to go back to school. It's unacceptable to see a parent paying school fees but seeing their child stay at home. We say no to the strike.
In Burkina Faso, 2 French actresses have spoken up against violence and sexual harassment in the African film industry. Inspired by the Me Too movement, actress and director Azata Soro launched the Même Pas Peur movement, which translates into Not Scared. At the Pan-African Film and Television Festival of Ouagadougou, Soro talked about how she was attacked and disfigured in 2017 by Burkinabe director Tahiru Tassere Odrago. It was during the filming of a television series which is in the running this year at the festival.
Je dis qu'il était temps It's everywhere, and not only actresses, directors, scriptwriters, technicians experience sexual harassment, or even more, sexual assaults, rapes. So it was time, and we have a hashtag, not afraid, because fear has to be on the other side now.
Il a tourné à droite pour aller dans la forêt.
It happened on September 30th, 2017, on a film set where I was an assistant. The director attacked me with a bottle of beer. He slashed my face.
Donc il a arrêté.
You're watching Africa Live. Coming up in business news. Tanzania's central bank begins a crackdown on illegal forex traders. And Mozambique files case against Credit Suisse in London's High Court.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home, and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines.
You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Accra is my kind of city. That's because when I'm here, I feel like I'm back home in Lagos or Abidjan, which are two of the major cities I grew up in.
See, business in Africa is high risk.
After about a decade covering business news on the continent, I've learned it's all about the high risk, but also the high returns and the high energy. You simply have to adjust in order to keep pace. When I started out as a journalist, my dream was to open people's minds to the different perspectives. From the CEO in the boardroom to the trader out in the street, we all have different stories. From Accra to Addis Ababa, from Cairo to Cape Town, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Here at CGTN, we realize that Africa is on the move, and it's moving fast, but we're moving right along with it. I'm Uche Okoronkwo, and I'm a business anchor and reporter at CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Tanzania has revoked licenses for some foreign exchange bureaus in the commercial capital of Dar es Salaam. The central bank announced in a statement that the dealers have been operating illegally. The move by the Apex Bank signals measures that the government is undertaking to rein in on black market traders. The crackdown is taking place as the local currency weakened against the dollar. Data from the central bank show the value of the Tanzanian shilling has fallen by 0.34% from the beginning of the year. This depreciation makes it more difficult for the country to service its external debt, which stood at $21 billion in December. Mozambique has filed a case in London's High Court against investment bank Credit Suisse. The lender helped to arrange $2 billion of government-backed loans that pushed Mozambique into a debt crisis. This has come to be termed as the tuna bond scandal. 3 former Credit Suisse bankers have already been indicted in the U.S. over this scandal. Mozambique's former finance minister Manuel Chang was arrested in South Africa in December and is fighting extradition. Ndambi Gwebuza, son of former President Armando Guebuza, has also been arrested in connection with this scandal. Mozambique's economy has been in crisis since 2016. When it emerged, the country had more than $2 billion of undisclosed state debts. The loans were marketed as investments in schemes, but a proportion of the money has not been accounted for. Dubai state-owned port operator DP World has partnered with the government of the self-declared Republic of Somaliland to build the Berbera Corridor. DP World is set to maintain a 51% stake and Somaliland 30%, as Ethiopia holds on to a 19% stake in the port of Berbera. CGTN's Alexandria Majala is in Hargeisa and brings us this report from the groundbreaking ceremony.
Dancing in celebration marked the Berbera Corridor groundbreaking ceremony. Here in the outskirts of Somaliland's capital, Hargeisa, President Musa Bihi Abdi presided over the event. The new corridor is being funded by the United Arab Emirates, whom have allocated an open budget for the massive project.
The existing road will be removed and the new asphalt road will be constructed. And this will serve all the, the movement from Berbera to Tog-Wakale.
The project, which is expected to take 22 months to complete, is receiving support from Ethiopia as well. Ethiopia, who is landlocked and has large Somali communities living in the country, is a natural trading partner for Somaliland on the project. The country has a 19% stake in the corridor that will link the two countries via highways and railways.
This road is very essential for the cooperation between, to make the relation between Ethiopia and Somaliland. It will increase the business, because we have the port here, and the port will need roads, and this is very important things. It will create a job also for the people of Somaliland.
The new corridor will be executed in 3 phases, with DP World pledging $50 million for Phase 1, the economic free zone. Modeled on DP World's Jebel Ali Free Zone in Dubai, the project will stimulate secondary investments in a range of businesses, including warehousing, logistics, traders, and manufacturers.
There are big opportunities for private sector to deliver solutions in our infrastructure. The aim of this project is to improve the economical development and social integration of the Horn of Africa and countries bordering Lake Victoria.
The 241-kilometer road that will connect Ethiopia to the Berbera port will cut right through Hargeisa, Somaliland's capital. It is expected to significantly boost the country's economy. Berbera hopes to regain its importance as an import-export hub in the Horn of Africa region and perhaps draw some business from East Africa as well. Alexandria Majala, Hargeisa, Somaliland.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has officially opened Vedanta Zinc International's Gamsberg mine in the country's Northern Cape province. The $400 million zinc project has an estimated lifespan of over 13 years. It's expected to exploit one of the largest known undeveloped zinc ore bodies in the world. CGTN's Angela Coppola has the details.
The second phase will see another $400 million investment as part of a total $1 billion project plan. And South African President Cyril Ramaphosa joined others to officially open the mine.
As a government, that's what really pleases us, that we've got partners
in building our country, our economy, who are serious about what they do, about investments, but more importantly about looking after the people who work here.
400 million of a planned $1 billion has already been invested, and some 40 million of that has gone towards HR and human development.
Some of the opportunities, not just business or corporate-wise, would be that the department itself ensures that its graduates are exposed to every single facet that geology has. So since graduating, there's so many things that I've learned here that I've never been exposed to at university.
From geology through to mining and finally processing, the mine uses state-of-the-art technology and highly skilled staff to get the job done.
This is where the milling and the splitting takes place. The big sample is the sample that's stored for archiving. The small one is the one that we are doing the actual test on. So from here the sample will go to the weighing, they will weigh it, and from there it will go to the XRF where they will get the result.
Most of the zinc sampling and processing is controlled electronically, but it still needs a human touch.
What's happening here is everything that's happening in the circle, whole circles, shows on the screen. I'm just monitoring to see that everything is fine, the process runs smoothly. If there's any breakdowns, like minor breakdowns, then I can see what I can do. Then I do first line maintenance.
This is almost half of a $1 billion investment plan for this mine, and it's a good sign of a level of confidence in the future of the country. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in the Northern Cape.
Primitive tools and antique techniques are still being used to make molasses in Egypt. The first record of the process dates back to 150 years ago. The energy-rich food is a staple at breakfast throughout the North African nation. CGTN's Asta Tal tells us more.
The production of molasses has survived modern times in Upper Egypt's Minya region, with primitive tools and antique techniques still being used.
Molasses is quite heavily consumed. It is a very popular product that is consumed in some suburbs in Cairo because it contains a number of beneficial elements such as iron and iodine. Molasses therefore strengthens the body and prevents some illnesses. It is a very promising industry when it comes to general healthcare uses.
However, the price of molasses has more than doubled over the past 10 years. The increase has mainly been driven up by the cost of the main ingredients, such as sugarcane.
10 years ago, a kilo of molasses used to cost 5 or 4 pounds. Now it costs 10 to 12 pounds. And you know about the price hikes. This is because it has become more expensive to grow sugarcane these days. For example, back in the day, 1 acre used to cost 5,000 Egyptian pounds. Now it costs 15,000 pounds. Did it or did it not get more expensive? If it did not, then no one should plant sugarcane.
Making the syrup requires a big team. The liquid juice is first passed through pipes in a room which heats the syrup up to 200 degrees Celsius. Then it is allowed to cool down. Once it does, the juice turns into thick molasses. The first record of the process dates back 150 years, and now dozens of workshops are still operating in the North African state.
The amount of molasses produced depends on the time it spends in the squeezer. The more hours the squeezer works, the higher the rate of production. The squeezer works here around 7 to 8 hours daily, producing around 5 or 4 tons of molasses. It depends on the daily rate of production and the kind of sugarcane inside the squeezer. Some lands produce high amounts of molasses than other lands.
Molasses is locally known as the dessert of the people, and many Egyptians enjoy the spread during breakfast. They even perceive the sweet liquid to be a healthier alternative to sugar. Asta Tal, CGTN.
You're watching Africa Live. Coming up after the break. Dozens of children in the Democratic Republic of Congo learn to speak Chinese as ties between the two countries strengthen.
When you look at Africa, what do you really see? Do you see fast-growing, endless deserts and parched earth? Or do you see the biggest opportunity for an agricultural revolution in a generation? Do you see crowded, unplanned cities or vast, untapped markets? Do you see a population at risk Or do you see a billion-strong opportunity to grow the next wave of multi-billion-dollar firms in Africa? When you look at Africa, what do you really see? Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Peninah, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Dozens of children in the Democratic Republic of Congo are learning to speak Chinese thanks to a charity organization that promotes cultural ties between China and the Central African nation. The organization, known as the Association of Chinese Women in Congo, is among a number of training centers to emerge in Africa to teach Mandarin. CGTN's Chris Chamringa with more on this story.
This isn't how most Congolese teenagers spend their weekends. These kids in Kinshasa are choosing to learn Chinese in this compound. It's an initiative led by an association of Chinese women living here in Congo, like the teacher they call Mama Rosa.
We focus on two aspects. One is help orphanage students and single mothers with skill training. And the second is to promote the Sino-Congolese culture communication.
And when the Congolese girls who have enrolled in the Malaika Children's Choir sing, they do so in Mandarin.
I love speaking Chinese because Mama Rosa taught us to speak it well.
I've learned a lot of Chinese over the past 2 years. I know how to greet, for instance, ni hao is hello. I can also ask for directions.
China has invested massively in Africa's infrastructure projects in recent decades, and that has provided employment for many people. The training of these Congolese children in the Chinese culture highlights the growing interest of China in the DRC and Africa as a whole. Here at the Association of Chinese Women in Congo, they're determined to make the cultural relations between China and the DRC harmonious. Chris Chamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
In Tunisia, digital exhibits are helping keep revolution in the country vibrant. The videos showcased first-hand accounts often made by protesters dodging censorship. Most of the videos showcased toppled long-time dictator Ben Ali and what is known as one of the first Facebook revolutions. Let's have a look.
With videos of angry protesters and clouds of tear gas and an audio recording ending with the cry Ben Ali has fled, the multimedia exhibit shows in detail the 29-day uprising. The uprising toppled longtime dictator Zine El Abidine Ben Ali in what is known as one of the first Facebook revolutions. Nearby, a TV plays an interview with the mother of Mohamed Bouazizi. It was filmed the day the young street vendor set himself aflight in the town of Sidi Bouzid in December 2010. His death sparked riots and protests at unemployment and the cost of living, and eventually forced Ben Ali to flee with his family to Saudi Arabia on January 14, 2011.
Telling this story is very important because we went through certain periods and this is like a flashback. We go back to the past and it's like reliving those moments. I'm 21 and obviously I'm not the same age as I was during the revolution. Back then, I wasn't aware of what was going on as I am now.
A storm of images and videos posted online were instrumental in recalling the whole ordeal, but many were only saved as posts on social media. This worried activists and researchers who feared that the online historical record was starting to be deleted.
We saw that many of the documents that made the revolution, that generated news during these 29 days, have disappeared from the web. So for us, it was important to keep them and to look for these documents, and also to think about how to curate these new types of documents in the future.
In response, they set up a collective of NGOs and worked with institutions including Tunisia's National Library to preserve the material by bringing together photos, videos, blog posts, poems, statements, and even Facebook statuses, along with information on their locations, dates, and the people who posted them.
Conciliating memory and history is absolutely exceptional for us. Usually people either work on memory or they focus on history. Well, to prepare for this exhibition, we are working on these two aspects, which of course are different, but here we find that they are complementary.
The exhibition, which will also go on show in the southern French city of Marseille later this year, includes material on protests dating back as far as 2008 through to the mass protests of early 2011. The creators of the exhibition aim to bring together a digital record of the days leading up to Ben Ali's fall through this showcase. Brian Toussaint, CGTN.
You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a break. We'll be right back with plenty more.
Africa, where champions are made, records are broken, legends are born. We're there for every goal, for every knockout, for every step of the way. Match Point, only on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's take you back now to Pakistan. We can show you live pictures from the Wagah border. Pakistan set to release a captured Indian pilot in a peace gesture aimed at easing tensions with its nuclear arch rival. You can see there that release of the pilot imminent, and this follows aerial clashes that ignited fears of a dangerous conflict in South Asia. Pakistani foreign minister says the wing commander will be handed back to Indian officials at the Wagah border crossing on Friday afternoon. That is where those pictures are coming to you from. Indian opposition politicians have raised doubts over whether an initial airstrike had destroyed a militant camp in Pakistan. Again, these are live pictures from the India-Pakistan border. All right, let's get more now from Shweta Bajaj in Srinagar, India. Shweta, how soon do we expect the handover and who is receiving the pilot?
At this point, what we understand is that the pilot, Wing Commander Abhinandan, would be entering India from Pakistan from an area called Wagah border. What we were hearing earlier in the day included that there was conversation between both the sides on how will the pilot be brought back. What we understand as of now is we've been told, what we are hearing from official news coming from Pakistan's side, that the pilot would be given from Wagah border. An Indian Army officer who's present there at the Wagah border confirmed this. He did not say at what time would this be happening, but we are expecting it to happen as soon as possible. But of course, if you understand what's happened in the last couple of days, this pilot was captured by Pakistan after there was a a sort of a military fight between both India and Pakistan when Pakistan's aircraft had entered the Indian occupied Kashmir. And from here on, what we understand from the Indian Army spokespeople who had press conferences spread over yesterday, they said that in the bargain they had sent their aircrafts back into Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. While that was happening, there was a crash of one of the MiG aircrafts of India. The aircraft is said to have fallen from on the Indian side, but the pilot, whose parachute when it went on, he fell on the side of the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Spread over the last 2 days, there's been a whole lot of tension here in India, and all questions being asked on when the pilot will come back. But we heard that good news coming in yesterday from Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan that the pilot would be returned. That have come from Indian side, the top one being where they see this as a gesture under the Geneva Convention. Secondly, we heard the Indian Prime Minister finally speak about Wing Commander Abhinandan and his return. He said that we are expecting him to arrive.
The release of this pilot is, of course, expected to ease tensions between India and Pakistan. Is this
to things completely opposite happening? Both the countries' reactions have been really, it's very difficult to preempt them at this point in time. Where it all started, we know that there was an attack on the 14th of February that happened very close to where I am right now, just a few kilometers away, which killed over 40 Indian paramilitary soldiers. Few days later, we know that an organization called Jaish-e-Mohammed took responsibility of that. India said that Jaish-e-Mohammed is based in Pakistan. That's when an airstrike happened. The airstrike, the Indian side claims that it managed to strike the terror camps. That kind of confirmation not available from the ground at this point in time. Followed by, of course, the time on the next day, on the 27th of February, when we saw Pakistani aircrafts coming across the line of control, which is the border between India and Pakistan, and entering the Indian-occupied Kashmir, leading to Indian aircrafts following with back. So it's been such a flurry of activities really happening between both the countries that very difficult to that you have a government
set to release the captured Indian pilot, which is being seen as a peace gesture aimed at easing tensions between India and Pakistan. We've been bringing you live pictures from the Wagah border, which is where all the attention is at the moment. That is where that release is expected to happen. And this, of course, is Africa Live Sports News. Following up next.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
South Africa's national rugby sevens team find themselves in Pool C with England, Japan and Chile for the Las Vegas stop on the World Sevens Series circuit. It is a